Have you ever been attacked, verbally, professionally, or socially, and instinctively felt the urge to defend yourself, only to find that it made you look weaker? Today I will reveal Machiavelli's counterintuitive trick that turns this instinct on its head and flips the power instantly without ever raising your voice. In the intricate dance of power, defending yourself is often the first step toward losing it. Niccolo Machiavelli, the master of strategy, teaches us that true power lies not in reacting, but in controlling perception. In this guide, we will uncover the timeless tactic of never defending yourself, and how this single maneuver can transform weakness into dominance. Defensiveness is the instinct of the unprepared. The moment a finger points at you, your pulse quickens, your words gather in your mouth, and you feel an irresistible urge to respond, to justify, to prove yourself. This, my friend, is where most people fall into the oldest trap of power. When you defend yourself, you are not merely answering a claim, you are confirming that the claim is worth answering. You are placing it on a pedestal, shining a light on it, and inviting the world to examine it. In your desperation to clear your name, you do not notice that you have just handed your enemy the most valuable gift in any conflict, your attention and your energy. Understand this. In the theater of influence, attention is power. The more you fight an accusation, the more oxygen you give it. Even if you believe you are dismantling it piece by piece, the very act of defending ties your identity to the accusation. You become part of its story. And in the eyes of the audience, those watching from the shadows, guilt and innocence matter far less than the spectacle you have just created. Imagine a ruler confronted by whispers of corruption. The insecure ruler calls meetings, issues statements, releases documents, speaks to the people with anxious eyes. The whispers grow into conversations, the conversations into headlines. By defending, he has transformed a murmur into a movement. Why? Because the people see not his innocence, they see his fear. And fear is contagious. Now imagine a different ruler. The whispers reach his ears, but he neither confirms nor denies. He acts as if the accusation is beneath his notice. He continues his affairs unbothered, unshaken. What happens to the whispers then? Without the ruler's reaction to feed them, they wither. His silence suggests either unshakable confidence or a power so great he need not lower himself to respond. In either case, perception bends in his favor. Defensiveness is the mark of someone who fears their position is fragile. It is a subconscious confession that an attack has landed close to the truth, or worse, that you fear it might appear true to others. This is why the moment you begin to defend, you step onto the battlefield of your opponent's choosing. And that battlefield is built to destroy you. Machiavelli understood this game well. He saw that in politics, war and court intrigue, the one who reacts first loses control of the frame. Once you are defending, you are no longer leading the conversation. You are following it. You have ceded the throne of narrative to your enemy, and they will dictate the terms while you dance to their tune. The danger is subtle. You may think you are clarifying, correcting, or protecting your image. But in truth, you are doing the opposite. The more words you speak in defense, the more weight the accusation gains in the minds of the public. You turn a passing comment into a documented controversy. You turn a single stone thrown into an avalanche you must now dig yourself out from. This is why the wise do not rush to defend. They understand that truth and perception are not the same thing, and that perception is the currency of power. They know that silence can be more powerful than argument, and that calm in the face of attack is a language the masses understand, the language of the unassailable. When you are attacked and you defend, you are playing your enemy's game. When you refuse, you force them to play yours. And in the realm of strategy, forcing your opponent to fight on your terms is the first step toward total victory. In the kingdom of power, words are weapons and silence is the shield of the undefeated. The impulse to speak, to explain, to counter is a reflex that belongs to the common man. But those who command respect understand a deeper law, that the absence of a reaction can wound more deeply than any speech ever could. The power of silence lies in its ability to create uncertainty. When you do not respond, the mind of your opponent becomes restless. They wonder, have I struck the wrong target? Have I been ignored because I am too insignificant? Or have I touched a truth so dangerous that my enemy will not even dignify it with an answer? Oh, every second you say nothing, their imagination gnaws at them. and the imagination is a far crueler interior than any human voice. Consider the nature of an accuser. They thrive on conflict, on back and forth exchanges that give them both fuel and a stage. By meeting their words with more words, you give them exactly what they crave: validation. But if they hurl their insult and meet only silence, the performance collapses. The audience loses interest. Their venom tastes sour in their own mouth, and their attack, once sharp, begins to dull under the weight of their own frustration. Machiavelli knew that the ruler who stays silent can appear godlike. A king who never lowers himself to answer a peasant's taunt is not seen as weak. He is seen as untouchable. The common man's voice cannot reach the throne unless the throne allows it. In this way, silence becomes not a lack of defense, but the most devastating defense of all, one that denies your opponent the dignity of acknowledgement. There is also the matter of timing. Silence is not always permanent. It can be a pause, a deliberate waiting, a tightening of the bowstring before the arrow is loosed. When you withhold your response, you force the other side to keep speaking, to overreach, to reveal more than they intended. People who believe they are unopposed grow careless. They exaggerate, they lie more boldly. They grow confident that they have you cornered. And in that confidence, they leave openings wide enough for you to strike at a time of your choosing. Understand the psychology at play. The human mind is deeply uncomfortable with a void. When you speak, you give your audience something to interpret. When you are silent, you force them to interpret nothing. And yet, they still try. They project, they guess, they spin theories. And the more they speculate, the more you control the field without ever lifting your hand. Silence is not passive. It is active manipulation of thought itself. In the courts of Renaissance Italy, silence could mean survival. A noble accused of treachery who responded with passionate denials only confirmed that the charge had pierced him. But the noble who stood calm, who let the accusation drift unanswered into the air, made himself a mystery. Was he guilty, innocent, or so powerful that guilt itself could not touch him, push him? The absence of an answer became its own kind of answer, and one that often carried more weight than the truth. This is not the silence of the fearful, it is the silence of the strategist. The fearful are paralyzed by attack. The strategist withholds response because he knows that every word is a piece on the chessboard, and the fewer pieces you commit, the harder it is for your opponent to predict your next move. In silence, you remain formless, impossible to strike, impossible to pin down. Silence also forces others to speak on your behalf. Supporters will step forward to defend you. Allies will interpret events in your favor. And even your enemies may hesitate to continue when they see that their words fall into the void. In this way, you can influence the game without appearing to play it at all. It is the illusion of non-action, which in truth is the highest form of action. The weak believe that speaking is strength, but history is written by those who know when to speak and when to let the world fill the silence for them. Every moment you hold your tongue, you increase the weight of the words you will eventually choose to release, if you choose to release them at all. And until that moment comes, you are not defending yourself. You are forcing the other side to defend against the invisible pressure of your restraint. When attacked, the unwise spend their breath defending themselves, trying to erase the stain of accusation. But the true strategist knows a greater art, not to shield from the blow, but to turn the weapon back upon the hand that strikes. This is the art of reversal, of making the accuser bear the weight of their own assault. You see, every attack carries within it a vulnerability, a thread that can be pulled until the fabric of the aggressor unravels. The moment they step forward with an accusation, they place themselves in the open, exposed to scrutiny. Most people do not notice this. They are too busy reacting, too desperate to clear their own name. But if you resist the reflex to defend, you will see the opening. And when you see it, you can do what Machiavelli himself advised. Force your opponent to answer for their own motives. Consider the court intrigues of Florence. A rival might whisper that you mishandled funds. Instead of producing ledgers and explanations, you raise a calm eyebrow and ask, why now? Why does this man speak only after losing a lucrative contract? What is his true interest in spreading such claims? In an instant, the crowd's attention shifts. No longer are they weighing your guilt, they are questioning his intent. Suspicion spreads like smoke, and it is no longer you who stands in it. This is the genius of redirection. When the spotlight falls upon you, you do not push it away. You turn it until it blinds the one who aimed it. The public is fickle. They will follow the scent of scandal wherever it leads. Say, if you can alter its path, you can make the hunter become the hunted without ever having to prove your own innocence. The beauty of this tactic lies in its subtlety. You do not lash out in rage. You do not accuse recklessly. You plant a seed of doubt with measured calm. Doubt once planted does not need your constant tending. It grows on its own. People will whisper. They will connect threads that were never there. They will convince themselves of what you merely implied. And all the while, your accuser burns energy trying to explain themselves, growing more agitated, more desperate, more suspicious looking with each passing day. Machiavelli understood that in politics, perception outweighs fact. If you defend yourself, you are asking the world to believe in your version of events. If you redirect, you are asking the world to question the other sides. And questioning is far more destructive than belief. Belief can be strengthened by evidence, but doubt feeds on itself, consuming everything it touches. There is also the matter of rhythm. When you defend, you react. When you redirect, you dictate the pace. Instead of chasing their claim, you force them to chase yours. They must now provide explanations, evidence, justifications. They are pulled onto the defensive, a position from which few ever recover their authority. Once a man is defending himself, he is admitting, consciously or not, that there is something to defend against. Watch the skilled manipulator at work, and you will see this pattern repeated. The accusation is met not with denial, but with a question that reframes the entire situation. An official accused of corruption calmly remarks, "It's interesting that this comes from someone who has been lobbying aggressively for the contract I denied." That one sentence shifts the story entirely. Now it is no longer about the official's alleged corruption. It is about the accuser's motives and whether they themselves are guilty of the very greed they pretend to expose. The more elegantly you perform this maneuver, the less it appears that you are defending yourself at all. Instead, it seems as though you are simply seeking truth, peeling back layers of intrigue for the good of all. People will forget the initial accusation. They will only remember the shadow now cast upon your enemy. And once the accuser is entangled in their own defense, you hold the higher ground. They will expend time, energy, and credibility fighting to clear their name, exactly what they intended to make you do. The roles have reversed, the tables have turned, and the very weapon they crafted has become the instrument of their own undoing. This tactic works because human nature is predictable. People assume that the one who must explain is the one who is guilty. They believe that the one who asks the questions is the one in control. So when you redirect, you change not only the conversation, you change the very roles each person plays in the eyes of the audience. And in the theater of power, the audience's perception is the only truth that matters. In the game of influence, reality is nothing without the audience to witness it to. You may be innocent, you may be guilty, but neither matters if the perception that surrounds you says otherwise. Machiavelli understood this better than any scholar, soldier, or prince of his time, that the truth is a fragile thing, easily overshadowed by the image that is projected to the masses. To win in the arena of power, you do not need to control reality. You need to control the perception of reality. Consider the stage of politics or the court of public opinion. Here, truth is a slow traveler. Perception moves at the speed of lightning. By the time the truth arrives, perception has already claimed the throne. This is why those who cling to defending their reality are always one step behind. They are chasing what the crowd has already decided. But those who master perception can stand before a crowd guilty of every sin and yet appear untouchable, even admirable. The key is to understand that people see what they are guided to see. They are not searching for facts. They are searching for a story that feels true to them. If you feed them that story confidently, without hesitation, they will rarely question it. And if your actions contradict it, they will twist the facts to fit the perception they have already accepted. A prince accused of weakness might display a single act of calculated ruthlessness, not because it is necessary for survival, but because it changes the image in the public mind. An accusation of dishonesty can be countered not by arguing, but by performing a grand gesture of apparent transparency, one so bold that it overshadows any whispers of deceit. These are not corrections to reality. They are deliberate manipulations of how reality is perceived. You must understand that perception is the armor and the sword. Armor, because if you appear strong, confident and in control, attacks will slide off you before they land. Sword, because the image you project can wound your opponents more deeply than any factual accusation ever could. In the eyes of the crowd, what they see is what they believe, and what they believe becomes the truth they defend. This is why defending yourself directly is dangerous. The moment you start explaining, you invite people to focus on the accusation. But if you shift your efforts entirely towards shaping the perception, you bypass the accusation altogether. You do not ask, do they believe I am innocent? You ask, what can I do so they see me as strong? Strength, after all, forgives many sins in the eyes of the world. Control of perception also allows you to bend time itself in your favor. A scandal that could destroy a man today might be forgotten tomorrow if you control the rhythm of events. Flood the stage with a bigger story, one that paints you in a desired light, and the old one fades into the background. People do not remember every detail. They remember the most vivid image you give them. Make that image yours. The truly dangerous figure is not the one who defends themselves well, but the one who turns every attack into an opportunity to reinforce their chosen image. A ruler accused of greed might launch a charitable act so grand it becomes the talk of the city. Not because it erases the accusation, but because it drowns it under a wave of admiration. The mind cannot hold two conflicting images forever. It will choose the stronger one and forget the weaker. You must also learn to make your image self-sustaining. If you cultivate an aura of power, people will interpret even your mistakes as signs of strategy. If you cultivate an image of wisdom, silence will be seen as deep thought, hesitation as careful consideration. Perception, once deeply rooted, becomes its own defense, requiring less and less maintenance as the crowd begins to do the work for you. But to wield perception is to accept a dangerous truth. You will often be rewarded for what you appear to be rather than what you truly are. And this, if mastered, is the ultimate advantage. For reality can be attacked, disproven, stripped away. But perception, once embedded in the minds of the masses, resists even the strongest evidence against it. A lie repeated with confidence becomes indistinguishable from truth. An image projected with conviction becomes more real than reality itself. So you must stop asking yourself what is true about me, and instead ask, what do I want to be seen as true about me? Because when the crowd sees strength, they will call you strong, even if you are trembling inside. When they see control, they will believe you are in command, even if chaos swirls around you. And when they see an untouchable figure who does not stoop to defense, they will forget that there was ever anything to defend against. In the theater of power, it is not the loudest voice that prevails, but the one that refuses to be dragged onto the stage as a mere actor in someone else's play. You have seen now the cost of defending yourself, the loss of control, the surrender of the frame, the subtle confession of weakness. You have learned the silent weapon that starves your enemies of attention, forcing them to choke on their own words. You have seen how to turn an attack into a trap, making the accuser carry the burden they intended for you. And you understand that the world is ruled not by reality, but by the perception that shapes it. The instinct to defend is human. The choice not to defend is strategic. And in that choice lies the separation between those who are merely at the mercy of the crowd and those who bend the crowd to their will. Machiavelli did not write for the meek. He wrote for the one who seeks to command, to dominate, to endure. To rise above the noise, you must learn to withhold, to redirect to craft the image that serves you, until truth itself bows to it. Never forget, the moment you defend, you descend. The moment you control perception, you ascend. And in the quiet space between attack and response lies the throne.